Hello and welcome to our programme The New Normal, where we're trying to make sense of the world during these extraordinary times. This week, how can our experience of other viruses help or indeed hinder the fight against COVID-19, and reopening the economy at what cost? We look at cities trying to kickstart tourism while also protecting public health. In Kenya, they've dealt with serious epidemics before, specifically HIV, and while the outbreak there isn't as bad as it was 20 years ago, hundreds of thousands of people still live with the virus. And now, with medics focused on a new deadly virus, COVID-19, HIV patients fear they simply won't be able to get the treatment they need.
Consolata is severely ill and is not able to get out of bed. She and her husband are seropositive for HIV. Although antiretroviral treatment is free in Kenya, they have almost run out of pills. For fear of contracting the COVID-19 virus, they don't feel comfortable going to the hospital. The World Health Organization and the UN's HIV/AIDS Agency fear that an increasing number of patients in sub-Saharan Africa are avoiding hospitals or don't have access to their medication. Using a mathematical model, they estimate that 500,000 people could die as a result of this situation.
If people disrupt accessing treatment services, let's say for 3 months or maybe 6 months, it's a model. It's not a perfect kind of figure, but it can clearly show you the trend as to how it can aggravate the health situation of people living with HIV.
Kenya has had to adapt. This clinic welcomes a very limited number of patients. To avoid crossing paths, they come in by appointment, one at a time. Social workers now conduct consultations over the phone.
I wanted to confirm about Catherine.
They now have to reassure patients on a daily basis.
The medicine doesn't come from Kenya. The medicine is secured from other places in the world. And right now, logistics are so hard everywhere in the world. So people are scared of might the ARVs run out.
The UN worries that a shortage of antiretrovirals might affect the continent if the pandemic lasts. For now, though, the situation in Kenya is manageable. To reduce how often they are forced to leave their homes, patients can now collect medicine for up to 6 months of treatment.
A world away from Nairobi in the US state of South Carolina, the population has other priorities. Economic revival are the new buzzwords in the city of Charleston, a city normally heavily reliant on tourism. Now, after weeks of lockdown, it is slowly opening up again, but few visitors are venturing out, as our reporter Katavan Gojestani has been finding out.
The Magnolia Plantation and Gardens is one of the oldest plantations in the U.S. After a 2-month coronavirus shutdown, the gardens have just reopened to the public.
Do you mind if I take your temperature before you go inside? And it's wonderful. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Every year, about 700,000 visitors from around the world stroll through the gardens of the Magnolia Plantation. Its director expects that number to be cut by 3 and believes the road to recovery will be a long one.
We do not expect the confidence to build for people to start traveling nationally and internationally very much till maybe fall when we get over the next wave of this. We probably took a $4 million hit in those 2 months being shut down.
The city of Charleston, a Democratic stronghold, started closing its businesses more than 2 weeks before the Republican governor announced a statewide stay-at-home order. With less than 600 COVID cases confirmed so far, Charleston County's numbers seem encouraging, but the economic impact is still devastating.
We've kept the number of cases down low, and the rate of increase has been declining now for a couple of weeks. This shutdown has had a terrible impact. Many small businesses suffering, trying to get back open, but we need to do it safely.
The city's economy is heavily dependent on tourists, so without visitors, its bars and restaurants are taking the biggest hit, like this French Capri. The owner, Patrice Rombaud, is relieved to be allowed to reopen, but worried restrictions will make it harder to recover.
Il va être l'heure, dans 20 minutes, on sera ouvert. Nous avons juste le droit de mettre la moitié des clients habituels. Pour l'instant, Charleston est réouvert, mais c'est pas encore la grande foule.
So far, Rombaud and his wife have managed to stay afloat, but a second wave of coronavirus coupled with another lockdown would be fatal to the French couple's American dream.
Charleston isn't the only place trying to lure tourists back. Sun seekers may also be able to head to the beaches of Portugal this summer. Unlike a number of other countries in Europe, Portugal isn't planning to impose a 14-day quarantine on those arriving from abroad. But how will Lisbon Airport ensure its terminals are safe for those touching down? We've been hearing from the airport's Director of Operations.
La connectivité aérienne pour le Portugal est fondamentale. L'activité touristique en dépend puisque 95% des touristes arrivent en avion. Alors le monsieur qui est derrière moi diffuse un produit d'hygiénisation des espaces qui permet d'avoir une hygiénisation durant 1 mois.
Airports may be tentatively reopening, but the vast majority of the world's cargo is still transported by sea. And during the pandemic, long-haul freight ships have provided a crucial service, moving medicines and food across the globe. But for the sailors on board, it's been a rocky few months. Because of travel restrictions, many of them have been stuck out at sea for far longer than normal. Our team, though, have met a group of sailors who've finally been able to dock in the port of Rotterdam.
Since the pandemic, crew rotation has been a serious headache. Seafarers' contracts are extended for lack of airlines or visas. The terminals are closed to visitors, and only a few people can approach these steel monsters. This pandemic prevents these seafarers from setting foot on dry land, so the chaplain, Dennis Woodward, prepares for his visit.
So I have a toiletry bag and then literally some deodorant and soap and even a memory stick.
Gloved and masked as COVID-19 imposes, the pastor will meet the crews of the MS Simon and the Atlantic Crown.
What I noticed is that there is a real sense of fatigue, and so they are physically and mentally exhausted. We're continuously pushing the boundary of the end line. And so, in my opinion, it's inhumane what's happening at the moment and mentally incredibly hard.
Going back home is the second captain's obsession.
I really don't know if I can go home with this situation with the COVID right now.
He testifies by telephone, wishes to remain anonymous.
I want to be with my family.
This Philippine sailor has been travelling the oceans for 1 year. His contract has been renewed several times.
My wife understands, but I know deep inside she wants me to be there. I think that's it. I just want to go home. End of story.
The Dutch Shipowners Association has just obtained approval from KLM Air France to open an airlift between Amsterdam and Manila. It's a small victory. Transit visas still need to be obtained, rarely granted despite the protocols adopted in early May by the International Maritime Organization.
We warmly welcome those protocols because of the fact that IMO is an international organization and shipping is an international business. On the other hand, it's depending on the different national governments whether or not it's going to be successful or not. If those national governments don't implement those protocols, it's useless.
The clock is ticking, say the unions and maritime organisations. In the absence of government decisions, the risks for seafarers are increasingly acute, and the lack of rotations will weigh heavily on the supply chains.
Like other countries we've seen during this episode, Thailand is slowly reopening its businesses and its restaurants. And there is concern, of course, about what happens next. But COVID-19 isn't the first coronavirus the nation has had to fight. SARS swept through Thailand back in 2003, meaning this time around, the population was more aware of what measures they needed to take.
We're in one of Bangkok's many bustling markets. and some normality is returning to the city here. There's people out and about, everyone's wearing a mask. But so far the measures here in Thailand have been effective at curtailing the deaths and keeping them under 60.
In here, I don't worry, because in my shop, I can prepare about alcohol gel and everything. And I trust my government in Thailand. I think government can control in here.
Thailand is famous for its street food, and here you can see some basic precautions that they've put in place to bring life back onto the streets. There's plastic dividing patrons here, and the servers are wearing full face masks.
เนื่องจากโคโรนาไวรัสนะคะถือว่าเป็นวิกฤตที่ทำให้บริษัทเราเป็นโอกาสมากๆเพราะว่าตัววิกฤตที่เป็นโอกาสอันนี้ทำให้เราได้มีออเดอร์ที่เยอะมากเนื่องจากเรามีความพร้อมในการทำแผ่นอะคริลิกมีช่างมีฝีมือมีเครื่องจักรเราจึงออกแบบดีไซน์ตัวสินค้าตัวนี้ออกมานะคะอย่างเป็นสินค้าสำเร็จรูปซึ่งทุกคนสามารถใช้งานได้เริ่มต้นเพียง560 บาทใช้ได้เลยกับร้านอาหารร้านค้าโรงแรม
While some businesses like this one have benefited from the crisis, for many it's been devastating. And until Thailand gets back large numbers of tourists, there will be a massive hole in Thailand's economy.
That's it for this week's episode. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week with more reports from France 24's correspondents around the world. And until then, let's leave you with some images of our cities slowly reopening and the beginning, perhaps, of our new normal.
Pakistan's intellectual capital, Lahore, is known as the Pearl of Punjab. But its image has been tarnished by terrorist attacks. During the 2016 Easter celebrations, a suicide bomber killed 75 people, including several children. Fanatics targeted not just Christians, but the entire Western-oriented part of Lahore society. The city is finally embracing life again, with modern infrastructure, preserving its heritage, and a cultural renaissance. Discover Lahore's vibrant energy in this episode of Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.